Hi, I'm Cody Anderson, one of the pastors here at Parker United Methodist Church. Well, we are in the Olympic season. Have you been watching the Olympics? Now, I have a huge confession to make. I am a huge Olympic fan. I love watching the Olympics. And my favorite Olympics are the Summer Olympics. I mean, there's nothing better for me than to sit down and watch volleyball or soccer, basketball, swimming, gymnastics. The list can keep growing. And it is growing because this year there is more access to the Olympics than I've ever seen in years past. I can turn on my TV at any time, and there is a new Olympic event going on that I've never seen before. So if you stop by my house right now in the next week and a half, you're probably going to catch me watching the Olympics, having it on and being exposed to new athletes, new countries, new events. I cannot get enough. Things that are new to me this year, I've really never watched water polo. I cannot believe how tough those athletes are. I've always loved watching diving, but there's been so much more access to watching diving this year that I've been exposed to new athletes and new coaches. I can't get enough of things like rugby and rowing and table tennis. I mean, the list keeps growing of the Olympic sports that I love. One of the things that I think that keeps it in that community feel, like Pastor Laura said, is that all of these countries, all of these people come together in a moment of peace to be able to compete in these events. And so we're able to cheer on athletes from other places around the world. We're able to hear the stories of other athletes from different places and the things that they've gone through to be able to get to where they are. I love the most hearing the stories of the athletes. So gymnastics has always been one that has captured my attention. There always seems to be stories within the athletes. I mean, we know that last year, last Olympics, Simone Biles really struggled. Where she is the best gymnast of all time, she really struggled and had to pull herself out of the Olympics last year, out of competition, so that others could rise above her as she was struggling. And we've seen her go through those struggles, wonder if she'd ever come back to compete, and then back this year to compete again. And she's doing amazing. But the one story that has really captured my attention is Suni Lee. Have you heard of Suni Lee? Suni Lee was one of those rising stars in the last Olympics who really stepped up after Simone Biles pulled herself back. And Suni Lee won the gold medal for the all-around competition. So she fought hard and she was able to capture that gold where we thought we had lost it because Simone Biles had dropped out. So Suni Lee, a gold medalist, she goes back home to her college and she's competing in college. And all of a sudden, she wakes up one morning and she realizes that she can't really move. She can't get out of bed. And she starts gaining all of this weight and it's hard for her to walk. It's hard for her to be able to just do simple, normal things, let alone compete. And so she has to sit on the sidelines as doctors are trying to figure out what is going on with her. It was a really scary time for her. And they realized that she had a kidney disease, kind of a rare one. And so they tried to tackle it with medicine, but they weren't even sure if she was going to survive this medical emergency, let alone walk again, let alone be able to compete again. But they were finally able to get her some medicine that put that disease back into remission for her. And so she began to walk again. And then she began to try to compete again, to build her strength back up. She wasn't sure that she would compete in the Olympics. In fact, she thought that that dream was gone. And yet, she worked so hard, so tirelessly, that she is now competing again in the Olympics for the United States. And she is one of those who will be competing for the all-around once again. Her story reminds me of that hope wears sneakers. Have you ever heard that saying before? A lot of times we think about the word hope and it becomes kind of this little tether or this flimsy thing that feels like it can be easily broken. But what we find is that hope is actually resiliency. Hope wears sneakers. Hope is what carries you from the hardest things in your life into those best moments where you can celebrate once again. So on Sunday, we heard this story about the disciples who are walking on this road called Emmaus. And this stranger joins them, and they're sharing the story of Jesus who has died, the Messiah who they thought was going to be something different and now is no more. And they use this line that I think is so important. They say to the stranger, "We had hoped." Right? We had hoped that Jesus would have been somebody different. We had hoped that he was this Messiah that we had been promised. We had hoped that he would be our Savior from this oppression that we're feeling. We had hoped. Well, they continue to travel, and at the end of their road, they invite the stranger to come and to have a meal with them. And as they are having that meal, this stranger takes bread and breaks it. And all of a sudden they realize that it was Jesus that was right there in front of them. Jesus, who had been walking beside them in their grief. Jesus, who had been walking beside them in this hope that was deferred, this hope that they felt was gone, this hope that they thought was no more. Jesus was walking beside them the whole time. So my question for you is, have you ever had a moment where you've hoped for something and things didn't look like they were going to turn out the way that you had hoped for? I know I have several different times where I've used those own words. I had hoped. I had hoped that things would be different. I had hoped that we wouldn't have that miscarriage. I had hoped that my children wouldn't do that mistake. I had hoped that my parents wouldn't get this illness. I had hoped, fill in the blank, right? There are so many things that we hope for in life and so many different ways that life can turn and look so different. But remember, hope has sneakers. Hope has sneakers, meaning that even though I had hoped that it was going to be this way, I still trust in God. I know that Jesus is with me along the road. I lace up my sneakers knowing that there are hard days ahead, but that hope is still there. It might just look different. So even when we have hoped for things that have not turned out the way that we wanted them to, when we had hoped that things would look differently, I think the key in that hope has sneakers, that hope that continues to hold on even when things look bleak, is community. Are the people who come and travel with us. This story of Jesus gives us that example. Jesus, who comes alongside of these disciples who are distraught and who had hoped for things and travels with them on that journey. The disciples who gather together around a table and bread is broken and they remember the promise that is there for them, that God is always there for them, that love is always there, and that if we continue to journey on, that we can take that bad and turn it into something good. So my question for you is, what have you hoped for? What are the times that you've hoped and really had a hard time getting back up on your feet, lacing those sneakers, believing that things were going to be okay? Who are the people who came alongside you, who walked with you, who helped carry that burden with you and helped cheer you on as you began to hope again, as you began to move into that place of promise once again? Who are the people who have cheered you on? And how have you seen God present with you through that? Have you seen God present with you in those darkest times and then brought light back into your life? And what is that moment, that hard thing that you've gone through that can maybe turn into something good and give light to somebody else? See, the stories of the Olympics are stories that can help us understand faith, understand hope, and understand God's love in us. Love for us. Love that goes through us into others. So I encourage you to watch the Olympics, to listen to the stories, and to think about the way that hope had sneakers for those athletes, that how hope had carried them through and has brought them to this place of triumph, of glory. Even if they placed last, they have become these athletes who have endured. And then think about the way that you have endured, the ways that you have traveled and journeyed through hard things, and you laced up those sneakers and you kept going. And you held on to that hope. Even if it was going to look different, even if things were going to be completely different than you had expected, you held on to that hope and you were able to see good come from it. What are the things that you hope for? And how can you lace up your sneakers and walk and travel with one another to be able to see God's glory and goodness happen even in the hardest of times? I hope to see you on Sunday, my friends. 10 a.m. is our worship service, one worship service, where we are blessing our children, our teachers, our school administrators, our support staff as they all go back to school. And I hope that you can come and to feel that community surround you as we continue to grow and encourage and strengthen each other in the hope and love of Jesus Christ.